Despite all the doubters, Ed and Luke believed, secured the necessary sponsorship, and set off with guides from the Peruvian coastal town of Camaná to start their adventure of a lifetime. They had forecast a year-long trek through Peru, Colombia, and Brazil. But after only 3 months, their relationship became so fractured that Luke decided he didn't want to continue and returned home, leaving Ed to carry on without him. Many guides came and went as Ed progressed until he met Gadiel Cho Sanchez Rivera Cho, a local Peruvian forestry worker. Cho agreed to guide Ed for 5 days, but ended up walking with him for 2 years. They hacked through jungle, swam and paddled across rivers, always backtracking so they didn't gain meters, survived several near-death experiences, until, on August 9, 2010, they finally arrived at the Amazon's mouth at the Atlantic coastal town of Morudá, Brazil. The walk had taken Ed 859 days, and he had clocked over 6,000 miles. Sir Ranulph Fiennes described the trip as truly extraordinary, in the top league of expeditions past and present. Stafford was announced as one of the National Geographic Adventurers of the Year 2010 and European Adventurer of the Year 2011. Soon after, he was awarded the MBE. He has since written several books and has starred in several expedition and survival series on the Discovery Channel. This is a story of incredible bravery, persistence, self-belief, and resilience. It's no wonder that Ed is a popular speaker on the corporate conference circuit. He's got one hell of a story to tell, and he tells it extremely well, with humility, charisma, and candor. More quiet and unassuming compared to other well-known media stars in the survival field, Ed has proven he is the real deal. I wanted to speak to him for different reasons, though. It wasn't his heroics that really interested me, impressive and awe-inspiring as they were. It was the story of teamworking that most fascinated me. The team he formed with Luke, one of his closest friends, crashed and burned spectacularly after only 3 months. Yet the team he formed with Cho, whom he'd only just met, worked so well it continued for 2 years, right up to the end. Why was that? What can we learn from what went so dramatically wrong that then went so dramatically right? I wanted to speak to Ed and find out more. I felt any learning I could extract from Ed's story would be highly relevant to today's teams, because the circumstances that he and his respective teams faced were very similar to those that teams face today. In the first instance, even though on face value the team only amounted to 2 core permanent members, Ed and Luke, and then Ed and Cho, both teams resembled today's project and cross-functional teams, where additional members come and go through the lifespan of the team. They hired hundreds of guides and translators, without whom the trip would simply not have succeeded. The diversity of these teams was obvious. Ed and Luke were white Anglo-Saxon, the guides were indigenous, and Cho looked quite different, being of Afro-Peruvian descent, and was considered very much mixed race. Ed was referred to as Gringo, and Cho as Negro. Like most workplace teams, they had to manage stakeholders, all outside of the jungle, in the form of sponsors, press, and the general public, whom they had to rely on to fund the walk. These relationships were vital. Laptops and phones were their only means of communication. They were also operating in the most VUCA of environments, characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. They had a plan, but it was highly unstable, and they actually had no idea how long the walk would take them. They had guessed about a year. It took over 2. They thought they'd walk not that much more than 4,000 miles of river. In fact, they walked 6,000. They had several known unknowns and a multitude of unknown unknowns to deal with. They had no way of predicting the reactions they would receive from tribes, drug runners, village guides, the thickness of the jungle, nor the weather conditions, especially water levels. On one occasion,